Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining me today. We've been casting a massive net lately, exploring exactly who we should love, which, spoiler alert, is basically everyone. But today, we're shifting gears. We're looking at some fascinating source material to answer a much deeper, really sacred question. Exactly why do we love them? We're going to explore the biblical power of love and see how these ancient texts actually frame our very modern human interactions. Okay, let's dive right into this. In our everyday lives, love is kind of treated as this fleeting feeling, or maybe a social transaction, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, right? But why is this simple act of loving others actually considered sacred? Well, the theological texts we're analyzing today present this profound reasoning that elevates human dignity to a completely divine level. It teaches us that loving others isn't just about being a polite, good person. It's actually about recognizing something fundamentally sacred in the individuals standing right in front of you. Section 1. The Biblical Foundation, the Image of God. The whole foundation starts with this core scripture from the book of Genesis. So God created humankind in his image. The source material points to this as the absolute unbreakable baseline for why human love is considered sacred. Now, to truly appreciate this, we gotta look at the historical context. Back in the ancient world, people genuinely believed that only kings, emperors, or high priests were made in the image of the gods. They held all the divine real estate, so to speak. Genesis was incredibly radical for its time because it completely democratized this concept. It applied the image of God to every single human being. The absolutely crucial takeaway here: this divine status isn't based on how someone behaves, it's not based on their belief system, and it has literally nothing to do with their background. It is just an inherent reality of their creation. The theological term for this is imago Dei, which is Latin for the image of God. It's an unearned, totally unbreakable status. And I absolutely love breaking this concept down because of what it demands from us in the real world. The text explains that when we honor another person, we literally honor the God who created them. Think about that. If every single person inherently carries this divine image, then the way we treat our neighbors, our friends, and yeah, even our most difficult enemies is a direct reflection of how we revere their creator. Section 2. The shift in perspective. Seeing beyond the surface. Now, what's really interesting about this next point is how it addresses a very well-documented human flaw. We tend to judge strictly by outward appearances. We constantly measure people based on what we can easily see: the clothes they wear, their social status, or how successful they seem on the surface. But 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7 introduces a massive shift in perspective, stating that the Lord looks closely at the heart. It is a stark contrast between our typical worldly metrics and God's actual perspective. The text is actively inviting us to look deeper, to peer past those superficial layers we so often use to categorize, measure, and, let's face it, sometimes unfairly dismiss the people around us. Section 3. Jesus' radical paradigm, the least of these. Which leads us to a pretty challenging question, one that creates some real narrative tension. Who is Jesus in the modern world? If we're supposed to be looking for the divine image in our everyday lives, where exactly does the text say we should actually be looking? The answer provided in the book of Matthew completely reframes reality. Jesus explicitly identifies with these specific groups: the hungry, the lonely, and the forgotten. In the cultural context of the first century, this was utterly shocking. Religious leaders back then often associated wealth and health with God's favor, while poverty or suffering were widely seen as curses. By aligning himself with the marginalized and the outcast, Jesus turned that entire social hierarchy completely upside down. The source text points out that serving marginalized people isn't just a nice act of charity. Under this new paradigm, serving them is actually serving Christ himself. And this brilliantly illustrates the core message found in Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. When you look through this lens, every single act of love becomes an act of worship. You aren't just handing someone a meal or giving them a few minutes of your valuable time. You are actively acknowledging the Creator by loving the creation standing right in front of you. It's a real game changer. Section 4. Actionable love. Practical ways to see God in others. So how do we actually translate these massive, beautiful theological concepts into simple, everyday behaviors? Well, the source text outlines 5 highly practical steps to bring the Imago Dei into our daily routines. Number 1, slow down and truly notice people. In our hyper-fast, incredibly distracted world, just giving someone your undivided attention is a radical act of love. Number 2, listen without preparing a rebuttal. Actually hear what they are saying, rather than just waiting for your turn to speak, which, let's be honest, is a habit we all struggle with from time to time. Number 3, assume dignity before assuming fault. Give people the benefit of the doubt simply because they carry that divine image. Number 4, speak blessings instead of labels. Words have immense power, so we should choose words that build up rather than quickly categorize. And finally, number 5, practice compassion toward challengers. Even the people who frustrate us the absolute most, the ones who cut us off in traffic or argue with us online, they are made in that exact same unbreakable image of God.
Section 5. Closing prayer and blessing.
Now, these are incredibly challenging steps, but they're deeply transformative. As we begin to wrap up this explainer, let's just slow our pacing down for a second. Let's allow ourselves a quiet moment to really reflect on this core message. The source text actually concludes with a heartfelt summary prayer, simply asking God to open our eyes to his presence in every single person. It's an acknowledgement that, hey, we need help to see the divine image in everyone we encounter, because doing so requires a fundamental shift away from our natural, deeply ingrained human judgments.
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. As a blessing and a challenge for the days ahead, I really encourage you to take this source material to heart. Actively practice seeing beyond the surface. Make it your goal to look for God's image in someone totally unexpected this week.
And finally, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. If every single person you meet today carries the unbreakable image of the Creator, how will that change the very next words you speak?